Hey, welcome. I'm your host, BKP. And again, we're still at Blue Jeans Pizza here in Blue Ridge, Georgia. And this is our first North Georgia Rural County Commission panel. I have with me here, I'm your host, BKP. I have with me here to my left, Stan Helton, Commission Chair of Fannin County. To his left, Robert Jones, Commission Chair of Pickens County. And on the end, Commission Chair of Gilmer County, Charlie Paris. Now, Sole Commissioner Lamar Paris will be joining us here briefly. He's running just a little behind, so at about 10 minutes when he comes in, we'll take a break and get Sole Commissioner Lamar Paris will be joining us at that time. Gentlemen, I appreciate you joining me. And first, I want to start by saying I want to thank you, Mr. Helton, because Mr. Helton called me one day and said, hey, what do you think about this? And we started talking about it, and I just thought it was an outstanding opportunity for what I call the 515 corridor from Jasper to Blairsville to get together and talk about North Georgia. We love all of Georgia, but we're going to focus on North Georgia. How about that?
I like that.
You like that? Well, I appreciate that. Mr. Jones, I appreciate, you're just waiting to say something. Would you like to open with that?
Let him start.
I just want to be sure they don't combine us with the North Georgia Mafia. Other than that, we're doing well.
Okay. Well, you know, so you saved all of your good material before we went live, okay? Gentlemen, we're getting together, and let's have a discussion. So I don't want to go in any direction of any question that's put out. You guys just get in back and forth. It's not directed to anybody. And let's start with roads in your counties. And we'll start with that because, you know, years ago, these positions were actually known as the road commissioners. Years ago, it was you're running for road commissioner. And it's still one of the, to me, and a lot of the citizens, the top priorities in your county is taking care of roads. All of you just at any time highlight taking care of the roads in your county and how working together as counties that is.
Well, I'll start. Of course, we've renamed our road department the Public Works, and the total budget for that department is almost 25% of the total county budget. So it's very significant dollar-wise, and certainly as Fannin County grows and more people move in here, the use of the roads and the condition of the roads is absolutely a critical component of our government. One of the things that we've done this year, which is a direct result of communicating with my fellow commissioners, is this chip sealing process. Rob has been very active with that and was kind enough to invite myself and our Public Works Director down and give us a demonstration on equipment needed. And we've been able to get involved with that, buy some equipment, and the result of that is a tremendous savings in paving and resurfacing roads using that equipment. So it is, as you said, it is absolutely critical for us, and the relationship I have with both of these gentlemen has been very helpful with me and certainly directly a help to the taxpayers of Fannin County.
Mr. Parrish, this is a test. By the way, I know Mr. No, I want to say this, and all three of you, I'd like to hear from all three of you on this. Some people don't, when I say realize, how many miles of county road there is. I mean, it's just, you know, because I want to say this very nicely as the citizens, there's the road you live on, right?
That's correct.
I mean, seriously, right? It's the road you live on, but the county, Gilmer County, how many miles of actual county road do you have to maintain?
It's either 502 or 503. I never can.
That two or three.
But it's just a hair over 500 miles.
500 miles of road. How about Pickens County?
Pickens County's got 547 miles of paved road, and we got 105 miles of dirt road that we're responsible for. And that's not counting Talking Rock, Jasper, Nelson, or state highways that are in the county.
State highways or city, that's not included.
That's
that
correct.
Is just
that's just county roads.
Just county roads. How about yourself?
415 county roads, 443 total miles, 60% paved, the 40% gravel, dirt roads.
So that's a lot of roads to fill gravel holes. How do you prioritize? I mean, let's go with you, Mr. Jones, here. How do you prioritize your road repairs? What gets gravel? What's getting paved this year? How do you do that in Pickens County?
Well, my two counterparts here is like myself. I took office originally as sole commissioner back in '05. And we had issues back then to the fact that the money that we used to get from the DOT was just 10 miles. Now, we just told you how many miles we've got. But the LMIG, or it used to be STIP back then, was just 10 miles, just enough money to do 10 miles. And then the county itself, such as these other two counties, Gilmer and Fannin, we didn't have a lot of money in our budget to resurface roads, because you're talking about doing a 22-foot wide road per mile is bouncing around somewhere around $80,000. That's what it costs to blacktop one. When you do chip seal, like we're doing a lot now, to get the dirt roads up to snuff, it's costing you somewhere between $30,000 and $55,000, depending on what you got to update that. Now, what we've done over the years to get to that point is, number one, we identified all of our roads. We've got the mileage on all of our roads, and then we had two of our individuals trained to go out and look at the road, see what kind of conditions they were in. Of course, the joke many years around North Georgia is we don't have potholes in North Georgia. We've got inverted speed humps, and that kind of slows down the individuals that are there. But when you try to do roads to bring them up to standards, is what we call it. We've got them graded to the best we can. But the problem Pickens County had was the fact that we had just about all of them fell through at one time. With especially the hard winters that we had back around around 2000, 2001, 2002, they were coming all to pieces. They were at what the allocator cracking. The traffic had increased quite a bit, and that's pretty hard on some of your back roads, because a lot of our back roads here, such as these two guys here, don't have any base underneath them. You need about 6 inches of base. So it took a little education to get your staff up to speed on what we need to do, where we need to start focusing our finances. And then, of course, on the finance part, the state is you're paid by the county to how many feet of road that you've got, or miles of road that you've got, and that's how you get your money through your LMIG program. But also what Pickens County had done, as everybody knows, we did not vote for the state transportation SPLOST dollars. But what we did locally is the Pickens County citizens voted for an internal county DOT road project money, and with roads, bridges, and sidewalks. So we've taken that money, matched it with the state funds, and for instance, like last year, we spent $1.2 million on upgrading roads last year. This year, this coming year, we're going to spend somewhere around $1.5 million, along with the LMIG money that we're getting from the state. So that money is going in there to bring our roads up to standards.
Mr. Parrish, let me ask you a question. Down in Gilmer County, when you took office,
economically, many people know in Gilmer County that the road department, older equipment, kind of struggling, didn't have enough resources to keep the roads up, the upkeep on the roads. When you came into office, there was a lot of things you faced first day where that was concerned. Where are we now?
Well, right now in the road department, I think we've made some tremendous strides, because what I was faced with when I first came in was personnel was down to less than half what it had been a few years earlier, and every single piece of equipment we had, with one exception, was just ancient. And I mean, it was so old that if something broke, we couldn't find parts for them anymore. Nothing had been replaced in a very, very long time. So we had a situation where we didn't have enough people. The equipment we had was constantly breaking down. When it did break down, it took us forever to find parts to replace it. So what we did was we utilized some of the savings that we got from the refinancing of the bonds to kind of concentrate on the road department. We've bought new equipment out there. We've bought 2 new dump trucks. And when I say new, I don't necessarily mean straight off the showroom floor, but new to us and relatively modern stuff. We bought 2 new dump trucks. We bought a new bulldozer. We bought a new roller unit for the paving. We've just really infused the road department with quite a bit of more modern equipment. And that's just been in the last year or so that we've done it. And by being able to utilize that, the savings from the bond refinancing for the bigger part of it, we were able to do all this and pay cash for it without going into any deeper debt, which was, debt is not an option for us. So, so we've got the road department almost where we need it in terms of equipment. We still need to have a new paver because that one is kind of on its last legs, and a couple of other little items, but we've got it almost where we want it. We've increased personnel, not back to really where we wish it could be, but what we're able to do for now, and we have more than we had before. We are looking to, for instance, next spring, put an extra mowing team on the roads. So we'll have 3 teams out mowing along the roadways, and I think that'll be a big improvement. We're looking at now, too, a situation, dust control has become a major issue for us. And, of course, the obvious answer that everybody has to dust control is we want you to pave our road. And we can't do it on any scale, hardly, but particularly not on the scale that the people would like to see us do it. But we have found that there is a chemical out there that seems to be pretty effective on dust control. What we need is a pumper unit to spread it out there, and a tank to hold a large quantity of it that we can buy. So we're putting that into the 2018 budget, and we're hoping to have that by next spring. I think that the situation we have in Gilmer has improved just leaps and bounds over what it was, say, 3 years ago, and I hope that people are seeing that, and I think for the most part that they are. So very pleased with where we've gone so far.
Mr. Helton, you're the new guy, right? New
As far as I know.
Yeah, you're the new guy. You did, and I want to say this, and when you were chairman-elect, in that time period between taking office, you did visit a lot of the meetings with other counties.
Yes.
Sit and listen to a lot of these guys actually before you took office and was sworn in. As far as roads, the Public Works Department, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've narrowed it down. I mean, you have, I don't want to say shrunk the services, but the overhead out there. So I say lean. What have you guys done to shrink that down, but also provide what the citizens want, taking care of their roads and their bridges and their dirt roads?
Well, the first thing we did is hired a gentleman that had 31 years experience with GDOT, and put him in charge and renamed it from the road garage to Public Works. That's more in tune with what is consistent today. And through his efforts, we've reorganized and downsized, and done this gradually, steadily, slowly. We've had some retirements, we've had some transfers, and we've had some folks that have left to pursue their other opportunities. But what we've expected is whatever that bar is, as far as what was expected before, to raise that. And you're right, I not only went to the other counties, but I also spent my 7 months I had last year to get out and work and learn. And I spent 3 full days working with people at the road department, at the Public Works Department, and it gave me a pretty good feel for some things that I felt like we could improve on. And then when we put Mr. Ratcliffe in charge, he and I had many discussions. I had discussions with the post commissioners last year when I could legally do that, and got their input on what they thought. And we all were in agreement that we felt we could be more efficient, that we could demand a little more, that we were a little fat. In fact, that was one of the things, not just Gilmer and Pickens County, but I went to other counties, and I felt like our staffing was a little too much for what we needed. So it's been kind of an overall evaluation and ongoing. But the one thing, of course, is Charlie was mentioning equipment. Felt like there was a need to get better equipment. You've got someone that wants to do a good job, But if he's got a piece of a trackhoe or something that he can't work with, well, that guy's not going to do a very good job. You get a man that wants to do a good job with a good piece of equipment that he's had input to say, this is what I need, you'll find the effort and the results will be quite a bit more than what you've had. But I've been very pleased with that effort. We've introduced something on our website. If any citizen has a complaint about roads, they can go on there and put that information in. It goes directly to the Public Works. They address those type of things. If it's emergency, they'll respond very quick. If it's something that just needs to be worked on, they've tried to be efficient with their time and work that in as they do the general areas. As you know, earlier this year, we had a full meeting, open session about what are the priority roads in our county that we need to keep open during storms, and that matches up with what we need to allow our citizens to move about very freely. So we factor all that in. The school, we've sat down with the school and asked for their input because they've had roads that have been, quite honestly, some pretty dangerous, and there's no more precious cargo on our county roads than our children. So I felt like that was something very critical that we input that into our decision. In fact, this week we're just finishing off a road that was a high priority for the school to make it safer, much safer, wider, cut down a hill, and hopefully the results of that will be that we'll never have an accident or an incident there again. So just a lot of things, and I learned a lot from these guys and try to input that in with our new management out at the road department, and I've been very, very pleased with the results.
Let's go to another direction. I know our chairman, Sole Commissioner Lamar Paris, has not joined us yet from Union County. So if we start talking about workshops, I don't know what he would do, maybe talk to himself. I know that wouldn't be fair. I hope he doesn't get upset with me that I just said that, but he's Sole Commissioner. So, but let's go in another direction. I think all of you know this. One of the top things myself is transparency. That's just the way I am. I believe it all belongs to the citizens, and you're serving the citizens that elected you. Just that simple. It's their budget, it's their money, it's their stuff. All three of you have workshops, correct? You have workshops. Are they on a monthly basis? Hey, can we go ahead and just get him on in? Mr. Paris, come on in. We want him, come on in this far end over here.
Do we need to get up and bow, or is everything fine?
This is Lamar Paris. Lamar Paris is Sole Commissioner in Union County. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine.
Okay, when we turn the camera off, I will tell you why Rob Jones said you were late, but not until the camera. Okay. We won't do that now. Don't you forget. I made it, although we are live, you have to come in on the deal, okay? I made a deal with these gentlemen before we start. I won't tell what I know on you, and you don't tell what you know on me. Can you abide by that?
I think I can abide by that.
All right, let's move forward. Thank you for joining us. Okay. We're talking now, you're a sole commissioner, and let me back up since you just got here. We're talking about how do you stay, these gentlemen have workshops with their commission. All three of you have a 3-person commission, right? All three
That's
counties.
correct.
You have workshops, and then you have your meetings. How do you, transparency is our subject we're on right now. How do you stay transparent with your citizens in Union County being a sole commissioner?
I think number one is I have a weekly newspaper column that I do question and answers. Takes a lot of time each week to do that. Gives me an opportunity on a weekly basis to try to update people on not only what's going on, but concerns that they have. So I think that would be number one. Number two is, like these gentlemen, my office is always open. Any information anybody wants, we have it available for them. We try to publicize. I'm a big Facebook advocate, so I'm on Facebook just about every day. Also trying to let people know what's going on in the county and what may be fixing to happen. So I think that helps make up for the fact that you're a sole commissioner, and some people think that you make your decisions behind closed doors that these gentlemen don't get to. Well, I can see that in some point, but everything we do comes before the county meeting and the public, just like theirs do. And so I feel very comfortable, and I think the public does, that they're seeing and getting an opportunity to know what is going on in the county, and it's not being done behind closed doors and hidden to the public.
So but you still have a monthly meeting, a standard monthly meeting where you actually go up there and you make, you go over your agenda for the monthly meeting and go over what's being spent, what's getting paved, what's getting done for the citizens to come here. It's a public meeting.
And make,
Go ahead.
I want to interject something. I was sole commissioner for 8 years down in Pickens County. I know what Lamar is going through, but I'll tell you this from my personal experience: as a sole commissioner form of government, you have more people looking over your shoulder than you do with a multi-person board. I like the fact that when you're sole commissioner form of government, when you make the decision, and I know he'll probably back me up on this, you take it to heart, because the decision that you make as a sole commissioner is strictly on your shoulders and your shoulders only, and you govern the lives of the people that you're making this decision for. Now you're on a multi-person board, I do this. And it does take...
Well, in a commission, all of the counties have a structure of CEO.
That's correct.
So all three of you have a CEO structure in the county, but if the other two, the CEO, understanding it, if the other two vote a different direction of what you feel, then as CEO, you're to administer what they just approved.
That's correct.
Am I right on that?
That is true. But the point I'm trying to make is the oversight and the transparency of a sole commissioner form of government compared to a multi-person board. I think a sole commissioner form of government has more responsibility and more transparency than what a multi-person board would.
Staying on transparency, you have a monthly workshop with your post, and that's open to the public, because realistically, there's a lot of people that have called me in the past saying, can I go to that meeting? But those are open and published, and are they on your website and your workshop agendas?
Yes, they are on the website.
And now you have a monthly workshop also
I do.
with your post commissioners.
That's correct. On the first Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, now I wanted to work this way for a reason. You're having the first workshops in my 8 years at FetchYourNews.com that I've ever known Fannin County to have. Why did you put workshops in yourself? Why did you? Because I have attended your workshops, and I'll say I appreciate them, and I think the citizens do. Why did you decide to do that?
Brian, the primary reason so I could communicate better with the commissioners, and also it would help them to be able to do that. I felt like that was lacking and was needed, and as you know, we've had a number of workshops. We don't have it scheduled as a monthly, but as needed on various subjects. So anytime the other commissioners feel like we need to do that, we'll do it. But I think it's been very helpful for the three of us. As you know, we have this thing called the Sunshine Law, and we have to adhere to that, and that's really the only legal opportunity for all three commissioners, chairman and two post commissioners, to sit down and interact and discuss issues that are important. And the workshop on the finance, the budget, I felt that was absolutely critical, because in previous communications with the post commissioners, they had never had that opportunity before. So as your folks were there at that workshop, we went through every department, every elected official, well over 1,000 line items, and quite honestly, it was I'd have to say we grilled people. It's taxpayer money, and I don't make any apologies about being tough on that. So workshops next year, maybe some of the officials and department heads, they may have a different term for it on their end. I'm going to continue.
I will say openly, first ones, I've enjoyed them. I enjoy going to the workshops, and that's actually, they're open to the public. The public can come here. And actually, the workshops I've attended, of all of your workshops, you are open to public comments at it, or you have an organized way of doing it, but still yet it is an opportunity, the workshop, more for the public to say how they feel about it versus a regular meeting.
Well, as for Stan's comment to the fact that our workshop is open to the fact that our other elected officials are invited to be there also.
Right.
And if that way, if the other post commissioners have any questions for those other elected officials, everything can be brought out to that point. Whether they show up or not is up to them. Maybe that's something that the citizens need to look at, about getting the other elected officials to some of these workshops. But anyway, it's worked out well in Pickens County, because Stan's right to the point that we have to have a legal way to meet with the other two commissioners.
Right. And discuss the subjects that have to come up. Let's go to the state. Let's switch gears. We've been
Must
talking about
we?
transfers, huh?
Must we?
Let's talk about rural county relationship with the state of Georgia. Let's do that. We hear. I want two sides. We hear if it's a subject that we don't feel in North Georgia we're getting enough attention on, that gets the noise. But there's got to be some things. There's got to be something out there the state does that we can highlight and say thank you for. But I want to go here first. You brought this up about the T-SPLOS. Well, that failed in the state of Georgia overall, except for one region, I think. But a couple of years ago, a new tax was put in place. Excise tax, we won't go down that road, but a transportation tax. And we were told by Atlanta that this would not just benefit Atlanta, it would benefit rural Georgia. So could each one of you tell us how that tax a couple of years ago, what they've done, how it's benefiting your county, what highways, what things you're seeing out of that, and the return? Because that was one of the things, and then I'm going to get away from it. As one of the things is, if you send it to us, we'll send it back to your county, and it's always a question of what you send back down, what you send back. So go ahead.
Could I start?
Yeah, you start right now.
Last in, first out. I was really one of the commissioners that was really excited that the state did pass that. It took a lot of fortitude by some of the representatives to vote for that, and some of them have had kickback on it. But we feel like we're seeing the benefit of new highway planning. Same that they have in Fannin, but we've got Highway 76 West going out of Blairsville, the Young Harris Highway. It's being planned now for construction beginning in about 3 years to widen 4-lane that way. We have a in-plan process 129 North. It's further out. It'll probably be a 2024, 2025 project. But those are things that would not have happened without this. We are also seeing, we have a Walmart and we have some accident issues out there. GDOT has been real good to come in immediately and meet with us and talk to us and try to come up with solutions on how to make things better. We're getting more funding for our LMIG, local maintenance and assistant grants from the state. We're getting that is being increased, so we've got more funding available for resurfacing our roads. So I am very excited about it long term. I think it's going to be a big advantage. We were talking about a new red light intersection going into our farmers market, and we were able to talk to them about it. Normally they would have said, okay, you guys get back with us when you got the plan and you got the money and maybe we'll do it. Instead we got, hey, we'll be glad to work with you on this. You start doing the preliminary plans and we think we can help you make this happen. So it's for somebody in a county government, it's an exciting future, I think, for our roads and highways.
I think, and Mr. Paris, take off with that. I think one of the things, and I remember when this was going through the House and the Senate for the governor to sign, I think one of the things was, would the rural counties get back, and what would be the benefit in rural counties? And I think that's sometimes something that we always want to be clear on. Mr. Parrish, you want to take on that?
Well, I was initially very much opposed to this bill, and very verbally so. But the concerns that I had, that was the bill as it was originally introduced, and the concerns that I had were ultimately dealt with. And it's turned out to be a really good thing for us. A couple of things in particular is that the LMIG funds that we get now, these have increased significantly. And that is a really big help to us. The 382 project from cutting through from 515 over to 382. Now that's been on the books since before this bill was enacted, but it was never funded. And pretty quickly after this, it did get funded. So that's been a big help to us. Another thing is that DOT has initiated a program now where they will go out and replace selected bridges in our counties. I got an email from them saying that they would be willing to replace the Vanilla Lane Bridge in Gilmer County if we requested it. took me about 10 seconds to request it. But, and the only cost...
And 8 of that was put the coffee down?
Exactly. Yeah, clean up some of the spill.
Yeah.
But the only cost to the county for that will be 1/2 of the cost of any additional rights of way that have to be obtained. The rest of that will be DOT will be paying for that.
Well, when they were presenting that bill and they were discussing around the state, there was a website you could go to with a list of bridges all through the entire state, and that was the big thing that needed replaced in the funding. So you're seeing an upside for Gilmer County in that. What about you, Mr. Johnson?
We're seeing an upside also in Pickens. Back in '05 when I first took office, we started having a meeting the first Monday of every month with the Pickens County Department of Transportation, as well with the cities, whoever's in charge of the city's Department of Transportation, and then we had 1 or 2 members from the DOT itself come in Georgia. So once a month we had these meetings, kept us abreast of the situation on how much money was being spent. Like I said earlier, it was a STIP was part of the money back then. Now it's rolled over into LMIG. But with that being said, we're seeing the money that normally goes into mileage of roads for paving is really increased. We're seeing some. I know we're getting a lot of flack, I guess, for lack of information, bad or good, on roundabouts. But I see that's fixing to start being used in Pickens County some. We're seeing some state highways that are being widened and passing lanes happen, especially on 53 towards the Marble Hill area. And we're seeing some safety projects that have been on the books for quite a while that are eventually finally stepping up to the plate, try to get those things eliminated. So I had some questions, as did Mr. Parrish here, when the bill was starting to be passed, but I think most of my issues that I had were being relieved. I just want to see the money that's paid within your counties as revenue, at least the majority of it would come back to the county.
I think for me, myself, and I talked to most of you when this bill was on the floor, is the return back to the county.
Correct.
I think that's was strong. What about yourself, Mr. Hilton? How have you seen the benefits of that, or if there is a negative that you see?
The biggest plus, of course, is the Highway 5 expansion, and as it stands right now, they're about 2 years away from breaking ground and expanding that. And I've been very pleased with what GDOT has done as far as their communication. They've had at least 2 public presentations communicating to the public what the options were, and there's been plenty of time for feedback or complaints from the citizens to get back. But that's going to be a huge improvement for the county when that gets started. Some of the other issues that this has addressed, we have at least 2, perhaps 3 bridges in the county that are going to be replaced in the next few years at a very, very minimal cost to the citizens and the taxpayers. And as I mentioned, the LMIG, we have 2 roads that we've just finished having resurfaced, Salem Road and Loving Road. These were big projects, and the LMIG actually paid for 72% of that cost. And I'm very pleased with that, and I'm looking forward to projects, particularly LMIG, going forward next year with a 5% increase in funds from this year. So it's been very positive for me. I really haven't seen anything of any consequence that I would call negative.
Okay, we're going to stay on the state just one more minute. And this is one of those where, the first person to step up, that doesn't mean 3 people step back and leave 1 guy forward, okay? But here's where we're going with this, okay? And I'm not going to call anybody's name to see who wants to answer this. So, and folks, this is not exactly how it happens, but you have somebody dedicated to X amount of time in the day to open the mail that comes from the state. So who grins the first, all right? Open the mail that comes from the state. And then you have somebody look at the sense of urgency has to be returned within X amount of days with something in a form and a report and everything done, and has to go back to the state. It has to be answered, or a new regulation has to be put in place. These are my words, not saying that they're but if you could say to the state of Georgia, this is one thing, and this is serious, and I've talked to all of you individually, and this is one thing if the state of Georgia and rural counties in Georgia could say, you know what, back away just a little, or give me a little more leeway on this, or this area in my county. And who wants to go first?
I'll jump into the middle. I got to give kudos to Russell McMurray. He's done a great job in the last year getting a lot of that paperwork eliminated to a point, and it expedited the fact that if we, or I know, speaking of personal experience, if Pickens County has got an issue, I get a pretty good response from actually my engineering group comes out of Cartersville, and I get a pretty good response, and normally doing well with the individuals that work there. So DOT in the last year and a half has really stepped up to the plate, got their ball rolling, got some of the paperwork pushed back, and if we call, we get a response. It's working, in my opinion, it's working a whole lot better than it used to be, and I'm sure there's always room for improvement. But the money is starting to flow, the projects are starting to flow, and I'm seeing some relief finally to the fact that if we, as chairman of the board of commissioners, need help from the DOT, I don't have a qualm to call because they have always responded good, especially in the last year and a half, 2 years.
Well, I'd like to jump in on top of that, if I could.
Go right ahead.
And as I understood your question, this was generally with the state, not.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
generally with state.
I have two things on my wish list from the state, and I'll preface it by saying that we get a good response from our legislatures, and when we have needs, we get help. But there are two things on my wish list that I wish the legislature would address. One is that when we voted down the T-Splost,
Yes.
our matching funds went from 10% to 30%. Now, I understand that. They told us that up front. But when the new bill passed, for the House Bill 101, when that passed, it essentially put into place the things that were voted down on the T-Splost.
Right.
So now we've got these things in place. I really would like to see the state come back and say, okay, all you guys, we're going to stop penalizing you now, and we're going to put you back to 10% matching. It just, to me, I think that would be the right thing to do, and it would help the counties tremendously, and I would really like to see them do that. The other thing is the TVAT formula that was put in place is one that has the counties getting less money, at least going forward, than what we anticipated that we would be getting from what they call the birthday tax. I know that there was an effort last year.
Can you tell people what the
TAVT.
TAVT is actually?
I thought it was TVAT. Is it TAVT?
TAVT, I believe it is.
It's one of them T's.
One of them. It's to get your tag for your car.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
You used to have a
Time
birthday,
tax.
we used to have what we called the birthday tax.
Right.
And they took that away, and when they changed how you register your vehicle, the county's a little on the downside.
Yeah.
You explain that. I don't want to get into that. That's not my job.
One of the things, for instance, is there was a provision in there that if counties collected more than a certain amount, then the percentage for collection the following year would be reduced somewhat.
Correct.
Now, and that happened last year. But what happened was some of these really large urban counties collected more, not us rural counties. And because of that, the formula went down for us, and we're collecting less. There was an effort in the last legislative session to correct that, and also to correct the overall formula so that the counties would get a little bit more of this tax, to at least get what they would have gotten with the birthday tax. And I think that's going to be reintroduced this year, and I really would like to see our legislators pass that for the rural counties, with the rural counties in mind, because the urban counties, they're doing great, but the way the formula is structured, it affects us when they do.
And we were promised, I don't know if Charlie remembers, but we were promised as this TAVT come in, because that was questions that we had originally. And of course, I based mine on another opinion, but under the TAVT, if the counties were taking a hit, that the state would make us whole at the end of the year. Yeah. That has never happened.
Right.
And so henceforth, that's why this part's coming in. But why Pickens County is kind of surviving at this point is because we've instituted a local SPLOST for our transportation.
Right.
And not put all our ducks, all our eggs in a basket for the state. So it's kind of helped wean off us that 30% that's now required for us to do that. On the other hand, I have to give kudos to Charlie here. The TAVT needs to be addressed, especially for us rural counties. We have all, I know me and Charlie have taken a hit to that point, and we were promised that they would make us whole. Okay, they've promised that they would make us whole. Live up to your promise, but I don't want to get to that.
Mr. Paris on the far end.
Far end Paris. The late Paris. I would go along with what Charlie has talked about. The TVAT was a law that was adopted that dealt with a problem that didn't exist. It changed a whole process of simply going and paying for your car tag on your birthday. And some legislator somewhere decided, you know what, that birthday tax, that sounds terrible. Let's do away with that birthday tax. So they came back, and what did they do? They took the sales tax off of cars, but you have to pay this fee now that's even sometimes more than the sales tax. And as a county level, it's hard for us to know what we're really supposed to get. We're relying on the state to tell us the amount of money we should be receiving. And we did all of this as a guise to get away with the word birthday tax. And they tried a conglomeration of ways to change the funding so that we would get the same amount of money. And so we don't really know for sure. It's hard to know if we get the same amount of money, but what we do know is that more money was collected than had been in the past, and who's the beneficiary of that? Not the counties, but the state. Mm-hmm. So the state's good to us, and they do a lot of good things, but in this case, we feel like that some of that extra money that the state has collected on that should be passed back to certainly the rural counties.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but the other thing is the tax commissioners, I don't want to bring them in, but it turned them into value. They have to now create or determine values and things like that. So anyhow, I don't want to go there.
Well, the DOR, the Department of Revenue, that we've asked over the years to give us a breakdown of the sales tax coming into the counties, and we cannot get that for one reason or another. We just get a check at the end of the day. There's two reasons why I'd like to see it. Number one, which businesses are doing better than others. That way you can focus on the ones that are not doing as good. But there again, it's an auditing thing for me that I want to be sure that we're getting our fair share of the sales tax that should be coming to our county. And Lamar, both of these gentlemen here, Lamar and Charlie, both are correct to the fact that now with this, is it TAVT, TVAT, non-birthday tax, however we want to say it.
I thought the VAT part was value-added tax.
It's a value added for somebody, not for the county. But that being said, we have all taken a hit, and the sales tax is the biggest. Not only just the fact that you've got to get your title, expense, but it's taking away all the sales tax from vehicles. And when you got a county like Pickens that's got 3 dealerships in one county, that was a pretty good hit for us.
Yes, big hit. Mr. Helton, you've waited patiently.
I think we've covered the birthday issue quite well. I'll go another direction here briefly. What I look very closely on and very try to be very aware of are unfunded mandates that come from the state. That has a tremendous impact on our budget. As you know, we fight and pride ourselves on not raising taxes. So if we have an unfunded mandate for any amount, that plays havoc with our budgets because that's taking funds away from something else that we think we need better. And briefly, the Department of Community Affairs, some of the things that they drive, I know are important, but it's kind of a carrot and stick approach. And sometimes I just feel like local folks, local leaders can make better decisions about what we need rather than someone that stays in Atlanta all the time. And that without getting too specific, those are just some areas that in my brief time have been issues that have been on the negative side, dealing with the state.
These guys are waiting for lunch, and so am I, and so is our staff here. We're getting 2 more areas. I mean, I'm really enjoying this. I think this is great information. I think it's something, and by the way, we are live and we're recording this, so it'd be something for everybody to be able to see later. Let's go with, I know you've just taken office. Mr. Parrish, you took office now in your 4th year, or you're in 3rd year?
I'm ending my 3rd year.
Ending your 3rd year now. Property values. Now, all of us know where we're at today. We're in an area, we all know what 2008, 2009, and 10, and so forth, and the property value going down, and your tax assessors valuing the county, and now the values are going back up. There's been a lot of balances on taxes, raising taxes, some requirements there, and trying to roll back. I think in the last couple of years there's been a little confusion on that. What has your county done? Have you rolled back taxes, or have you balanced things? Have you had to raise taxes? And what are some of the things with the economy coming back, each individually, as far as your tax structure and your county? Anyone?
I'll go.
Okay. Charlie pushed back on it.
Was Charlie going first? I'll follow you guys.
He was moving back.
If the depth perception did not work on the crowd, okay, go ahead.
Well, as you know, Fannin County has gone through a reassessment, kind of a very painful process, quite honestly. And if you take the real value of all the property in Fannin County, that aggregate amount is over $3 billion. A lot of money, a very important function, and we, as a result of being under a consent order from the state, Fannin County has been out of compliance with the state on tax.
I'm glad you brought that up, sir,
valuations.
because that is something that I know.
Since 2009, and we just recently have been released from that consent order by the state. So that takes us out of the threat of being of having a fine, a significant fine, or even the worst case scenario, having the state come up and take over that tax assessor function. So the values in our county, as people move in and they buy more homes, and the value of that, it goes up. We've been in an advantage where our millage rate has slowly declined, not just something that we did this year, which we did a few weeks ago, but it's been something over the last few years. If you look at it, the previous commissioners have paid a lot of attention to that. So we've benefited from that, and that's a track that I want to stay on. I'm not going to brag on how low our millage rate is.
I appreciate that.
But North Georgia.
Wasn't my intention.
Yeah, if we pooled it, our 4 counties together, we're pretty good compared to any other 4 counties you want to mention, because it's stewardship of the finances of the county, being tough on the budget, and then having the natural advantage of being up here in the most beautiful part of the country. And as long as they have hurricanes in Florida and Atlanta keeps having traffic, I think folks are going to move here, and that's going to continue on.
Well, the way I framed that, and let me just, for clarification, I mean, we've all lived here in 2008, and we know what we went through economically. We try every day not to have to remember that, but there's the realities that came out of that, and that's just the bottom line. And now values are going back up. There was things you couldn't spend. It couldn't replace equipment, like Mr. Parrish brought up earlier about the road department. There's things you could not do, but things have changed. And every once in a while, you may have to do something, and you got to, just opportunity to explain, I guess. I don't know. Anybody else? You want to go on the far end?
Yeah, let me address a little bit. The property tax issue is related to values. The state requires that you stay within, and it's really complicated, so I'm not going to try to explain it here, but basically you try to stay on 42%.
Right.
I think they consider the perfect valuation of your properties, so that you don't worry about getting fines. The state initially did that so that they would be sure to get their portion of the property tax, because they got a small portion of the property tax. That's not the case anymore. The state's property tax is phased out. So I'm hoping, since it's not a part of what they're going to get, that they'll lighten up a little bit on counties and how we do this, because it's just a simple thing. If you want to, and I'm proud that Union County has the lowest millage rate in the state of Georgia, next to Fannin. Fannin's got the lowest one. But we all have relatively low tax rates. But to change that rate now, so if I decide next year, and I've been approached by our tax assessor's office, they want me to spend $600,000 over the next 3 years to reassess a third of our properties each year to get our property values in line. So if I spend this $600,000 to do that, the property values will probably go up since the economy is picking up, and my millage rate will go down. The money out of your pocket tax rate for the individual is going to be the same. So we're going through this shell game of raising the values or lowering the values, and raising the millage rate or lowering the millage rate to match up with those values. And it really is. It's not a game, but on the one hand it is, because we need X number of dollars to operate our county. It doesn't make a dang what the property values are. If they're too low, we got to have a higher millage rate. If they're not, so let the counties worry about it. If we want our millage rate to lower a little bit, let us worry about paying to get the assessment. But don't come in and give us a fine and threaten like they've done with Fannin County. To give you an idea, now Fannin
and
Gilmer as well.
I wouldn't give you any longer there,
Well,
Mr. Harris and Gilmer. I've read that letter before.
Yeah, let me tell you one other thing else. Fannin County now has $1 million budget for their tax assessor's office. Our budget's $350,000 for ours. Now, ours is a little lower than it should be, but his is higher because he's had to spend all this extra money getting all this stuff done. And the bottom line is, the idea is your taxes are fair, but it hadn't really, as long as everybody's house values are too high or too low, and you don't just have one or two, or three or four in one place, then it's being made a bigger deal out of it than it really is, in my opinion.
I want to whine about one thing. If, and this is the case for us this year, if your millage rate stays exactly the same this year as it was last year, I very much disagree with the idea that we have to advertise that as a tax increase. And under the current laws, if your tax digest goes up some and you keep your millage rate where it is, don't adopt the so-called rollback rate, you have to go through all the processes for a tax increase. And in the eyes of the state of Georgia, it is a tax increase. And I just disagree with that. I hate it that, I don't think that's fair. Whine over.
Okay, we'll go with that. I made a commitment to stay out of the discussion side, just answering questions. Okay, so moving right along.
Let's get over the Great Depression. Let's move on out of this.
Why do I think I'm going to hear about this later?
Moving right along.
Just for clarification, Pickens County used the rollback rate. We re-rolled ours back a little bit.
Well, the reason I brought that up, and I will say this, and I respect all of you gentlemen here, and I know where you're at on some of these things. The tax money belongs to the citizens. It's always worthy to discuss at any time what you're doing. And as Mr. Paris on the end there said, I appreciate his answer because he actually laid it out for the citizens to say, hey, you might see this up and this down, but you need to know what we have to go through to get here and do this.
Yeah.
So
and Pickens County has tried to absorb a lot of the expenses, but like I'm one of four sitting here at the table. The biggest issue I have, and what we're all dealing with, is health insurance. Health insurance in the last 2 years is you can't predict from one year to the next what your health insurance is going to do, and the federal government can't predict what it's going to do. I mean, it's what the Bible says about the blind leading the blind.
Let me get this for the viewers. On the health insurance, the people out there that think that the counties have some special state deal, you don't.
No, we do not.
You get health insurance quotes like anybody else.
Right.
Every
and,
year.
And the fact, and I hate the fact that we run a lot of our operation on part-time staff. And with the 30-hour minimum that you have, you go over 30 hours, then you got to start supplying. I've got a lot of people. Luckily, fortunately, they did put a codicil in there to act. They can sign a piece of paper that they don't want any health insurance. But it puts a hard limit to what we have to deal with one year to the next. That's the only, in my opinion, that's the only limited factor as we go from one budget year to the next. Of what my health and workman's comp insurance is going to cost. It never goes down.
It's been an enormous increase in the last several years. It has, and it's unpredictable.
Yeah, well, we're experiencing the government, the county government and city governments are experiencing exactly what you're experiencing at home.
All right, let's go with two more things so we can eat lunch, and we're going to start on the far end and come this way. What I'd like to hear from each one of you this morning before we leave, tell me what the benefit is of the 4 counties, the communication, how you guys can help each other, and what is a time like this, and when you have lunch together and get together and talk, what is the benefit for Union County to work with these others here in North Georgia, Mr. Paris?
Okay. Well, number one, we're all essentially the same size counties. We may be a few thousand one way or the other. So we have all the same issues and the same problems. We're on the corridor, the 515 corridor, so we have the same people coming from Atlanta and Florida and different places coming up our corridors to visit our counties. We all have beautiful counties with beautiful scenery. We all attract tourism as a big part of our industry. So when we get together to talk and eat and meet, we've all got common issues that we can discuss. For example, one right now a couple of things we're dealing with right now is the noise issue. The barking dog, the car too loud, or all the issues dealing with noise, shooting in your backyard, practicing shooting in the neighborhood. So these are all big issues that it's always nice to be able to meet with these guys and talk to them and say, well, what are you doing in your county and how are you doing it? Or what are you charging for this particular service and how's your budget related to ours? So it just gives us all an advantage, I think. We're all conservative. We're all looking to do as much as we can with as little as we can, but we also want our counties to be the best that they can be. We're not satisfied with just not doing anything in the guise of we're going to cut taxes and we're not going to do anything for our people. We all think alike, I think, in that service, that we want our counties to be the best we can be at the lowest possible price. And to do that, working together makes that easier to happen.
What about you, Mr. Curtis?
Well, we've met several times over lunch and just had general conversations. And I got to say that in most of these conversations, just in the general flow of it, something will be said that I'll have to take note of, and wait a minute, that's a good idea. I need to be doing that. And there's been several things that have come up that I will come back and implement for Gilmer County that I probably would never have thought of, except that it just came up just in a normal conversation in these meetings. So, of course, I always try to take credit for having thought of it. But that aside, there's been a number of helpful ideas that I picked up just through the conversation that I think is really it's going to help us in Gilmer County.
What about you, Mr. Jones?
Well, having Lamar on board to help us as we go through and how we run our counties has been a very helpful project. Between Pickens, Gilmer, and Fannin, the biggest thing we've got going with us and have had for years is the judicial circuit that we have here, the Appalachian Judicial Circuit, which is all 3 counties. We all have to work together. So our main goal is to be sure that Pickens is offering the judicial, which is your public defender, your court, your superior court judges, and your DA's office, that we all, 3 of us, have to put the pennies in to make these operations work. We want to be sure if we're all doing the best for all of our communities, to be sure everybody's getting the same amount of money to make this thing operate.
So the Appalachian Judicial District, just for those out there, is made up of Pickens, Gilmer, and Fannin County. And there are several things in that big umbrella from the courts and everything like that you do have to have shared expenses. So
That's
that
correct.
has to have conversation.
That's correct.
That's good. What about you, Mr. Hill?
Well, if you add up the experience between these 3 fine gentlemen, you're talking about over 40 years running government. What's that, 38 years for you, Lamar, and 2 for everybody else?
Seems like that.
I was wondering who would close with the joke, but I.
Way to go, Dad. Only 17.
But it's been extremely beneficial to me and by extension the citizens of Fannin to work with these gentlemen. It's like in my previous life working in private industry, I had friends that I competed with, and you could joke and get together, but when it really came to understanding their business and how good they weren't going to tell you things that helped you compete against them. It's not like that here. I mean, we all have common counties, common forms of government, and the ideas, the things that they've gone through are greatly beneficial to me, and I can get real specific about that, but I have spent time with them. They've been gracious enough to do more than just lunch, but take me around their counties and show us things that we need to look at. And we, by that, have done some of those things in Fannin County and saved money and done better by the taxpayers.
Well, everything we've done today, I've went down to that end and come this way. And again, before we do close, I want to thank you for being instrumental in helping put this together today. We are in Fannin County. So let's start at this end and let's close. And is there something today you wanted to share with the citizens out there, share with the taxpayers, people of Fannin County, that you wanted to make sure you left today and said, hey, I'd like to make sure my county knows this?
Well, the big issue for me, there's a number of them, but I take the promise that I made that I would treat the taxpayers' funds just like it's mine. I recognize it's their money, it's not mine, and I take that very serious. And this budget process we're going through, we're being very tough on everybody. And I like everybody that I'm dealing with on the other side when we're talking budgets. But be that as it may, I feel like our responsibility as chairman and as one of the commissioners is to make sure we're doing everything to extract all the value we can out of the taxpayers' hard-earned money. And I don't mind shaking a few trees, and I don't mind upsetting a few people if I don't feel like they're running their departments or their offices the way that Fannin County expects. I take that very serious.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones.
With all four of us here together, and I'm assuming that as the next few days go through, there are going to be some state legislators look at this. They're going to look at us four as a group of the 515 corridor that have some political clout down at the state capitol. And I'm sure some of us already have, and I'm sure some of us more will probably start getting phone calls from certain areas that for support. But they see us all four working together, so they know they're not treating one different than the other. We all know what our differences are. We're trying to come together with one group and do the best for their citizens in our county without feeling ostracized by certain individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Parrish?
On the subject of transparency, we are right now going through our 2018 budget process, and our budget meetings will be next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Write that down. I need to be there.
I want to make sure you know next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. These are typically all-day sessions, but if you want transparency, attend those meetings, because that's where you're going to find out not just where the money is spent, but why the money is spent. And it's all open to the public, and we appreciate anybody that wants to come and participate. And I really suggest they do that, because that is the ultimate transparency.
Mr. Parrish?
Budget time is the toughest time of the year for a commissioner, and especially for a new commissioner. And I remember being in Mr. Helton's shoes and having to go in that first time with all these elected officials who have been in office prior to you and pretty well had their way set. And so now you're going back and trying to get them to look again at what they've been doing to try to find and keep the costs down as much as possible. And it's not an enviable situation to be in for him or Charlie, but it gets easier and it gets better as you go along, because if you keep up with it as you go, then you're going to know by the time that second, third, or fourth term that those guys are doing a good job and doing it in a reasonable amount of money. The other thing I want to say is, I don't mean it to sound funny, but it's serious, in that we all feel for for Stan and the medical issues he's been going with, but I also want to say in public that I'm jealous because his hair is growing back and mine's not. And so with that, I'm not going to say anything else today.
It is?
We always need a closer, okay? Always need a closer. I've been your host, VKP. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank these gentlemen one more time. Sole Commissioner, Union County, Lamar Paris. Commission Chair, Gilmer County, Charlie Paris. Commission Chair, Pickens County, Robert Jones. And Commission Chair, Fannin County, Stan Helton. I want to thank each and every one of them. This is our first 515 North Georgia Rural County panel. I think they did a great job. I think we got a lot of information, a lot of good discussion out here, and this will also be on our YouTube channel, Fetcher News FYN TV. Thank you very much again. I'm your host, VKP.